Hey, Toy Schnippers, it's Jason Caliri over here at ToyShnip.com and joined by a very special guest. You hear him you see him every Monday morning when he releases his blog. It's our Monday morning coffee talk with Dan. Hey, Dan, what's up?
What's going on? How we doing?
I'm blown away about what's happened in the industry, in the entertainment field, and pop culture the past 3 days, and a lot of it is the fault of Disney because of Disney Plus Day. But we got Ghostbusters coming in a week, and
I'm pumped about that.
Everybody's pumped about that. Did you see the Plasma series figures that they came out with for Ghostbusters this year?
Honestly, the toy line is the most impressive I've seen for Star Wars since I was a kid. Honestly,
Star Wars Black Series is great, but they actually Hasbro transferred it and made what's called the Plasma series for Ghostbusters.
Yep.
So they've got hyper realistic looking figures for the Ghostbuster figures, and they actually combined what like Marvel's doing. So they did it with a Build-A-Fig. So this week we're actually going to do Build-A-Fig unboxing with Turco, and he's going to be building the Sentinel Terror Dog from the Ghostbusters Afterlife movie, which we're pretty pumped about.
Yeah, that figure line is just going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. So one of the things that I wanted to get you on board, and talk to you about is this Disney Plus Day that came out, and just how ridiculous the amount of news and announcements that they made in one day. It was nuts.
And a lot of it wasn't new. We had known the titles and stuff like that, but it's to see the logos just kind of put everything else in perspective, and to really just if it was finally official. Everything until then is just a leak, but it was finally official.
Not even just the logos, but some of the concept art that they sent out. Okay, so let's talk. Obviously, the big elephant in the room that day, ObiWan. Everybody flipped out because they thought 1,000% that we were going to get a trailer for ObiWan. We kind of got a trailer for ObiWan, but the whole thing was based on that concept art. And three things stuck out for me. One, the fact that Anakin, Hayden Christensen, Darth Vader is back.
Mm-hmm.
Two, that picture, what looks like they're on Mustafar having another battle. But the sleeper of that whole series of concept art, did you see the one where Vader was sitting at his desk?
Yeah.
Was he talking to the Emperor?
I'm honestly not too sure, because I'm not sure where they're going with this. It's possible. There are so many avenues to explore with this, because we have to think about where they are in terms of time. And I'm shocked we've seen Hayden Christensen back. He had shied away from acting for so long now, and he's back with it. I'm just I'm not sure which direction they're going in, because I'm trying to place all of this within the series that they're doing. We have Boba Fett coming. We have, which I'm really excited about. I don't know where we are in a timeline for all of this to fit.
So they did address that in the one video that they sent out, and they said that this is approximately 7 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really weird is there was a third picture that I saw of, it looked like, obviously it's an Empire TIE Fighter type deal.
Right.
But it looked like one of the second sisters or the Inquisitors in the picture. So are they following that line with this? Are we going to get an introduction to that?
They always surprise me with the Star Wars stuff, because every time I think I know what's going on, I end up having no idea in the end, which I like. Actually, it's one of those franchises I appreciate that about, because
nobody expected Boba Fett to show up in Mandalorian and
exactly
show up, but kill Bib Fortuna in the stinger scene.
I absolutely lost my mind with that, and so it's with Star Wars. It's the one thing I don't speculate on, because I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just going to take whatever they give me. It's I think there's a lot there to love, and kudos to them for bringing back, different casts, different actors, who we just had sworn off being a part of anything, and getting them back and having them buy in. And I think in some ways righting the wrongs of the past, for some of the films that they had in the past, because there was a rough patch. And I think that they can address a lot of that now.
Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry.
I think they can address a lot of that now. And actually they have not just the dollars, but enough creative freedom with so many different people working on different projects where they can really turn it around and just make it great.
Yeah. You know, everybody's anticipating ObiWan. I think we're going to get the trailer around Christmas. It wouldn't surprise me.
I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I think people wanted more trailers of the Disney Plus event, but it wasn't about that. It was about announcing projects and finalizing projects. And your trailers come at a time for a reason. You know, they're going to come a year to 6 months before it's coming out. You're going to get a teaser, and then you're going to get another one. And like we see with, you know, one that we'll talk about later, a whole event about it. Folks like trailers almost as much as the project. So you're not going to get it all at once. You're going to get it at the time it's going to excite you the most. And I wouldn't be surprised if on Christmas or Christmas Eve, they drop that, you know, when everybody's going to the movies on Christmas, stuff like that. They start to let out the real trailer for that. And I wouldn't put it past them to even do a movie release trailer for a series at this point. Because the money's worth spending, especially, you know, they're raising their subscription price. They have the money to put towards the marketing there too. And it's just going to make everybody lose their minds and freak out while they're with their family, which spreads the word. It just makes sense to come out around Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that was the one cool thing with the Star Wars announcements. Yeah. They launched that Behind the Mask of Boba Fett series, I think it was called, that dropped. And I watched that. That was like a 22-minute introduction of the character.
Yeah.
And I think they did that more so for people that didn't know who he was. I don't know how you don't know who Boba Fett is.
Right.
But I think that's why they did that. One of the other things that announcements that they made really only on social media was Robert Zemeckis directing Pinocchio.
Yeah.
And getting a live action Pinocchio. And the fact that Tom Hanks is Geppetto. I think he'd be perfect for it.
Yeah, I was honestly shocked to see him tie himself to the piece, not in a bad way. Just wow, he's really gonna do this. Like, and as we all know, him as an actor, he's all about the project he's in at the moment. And I'm really excited about that. And I mean, with Zemeckis there helming the whole project, I'm not a big fan of a lot of the live action Disney stuff they've done.
Me neither.
A lot of it's been a mess to me, but this just seems like it was finally thought out. And not only do they have the casting, but they have the person, you know, pulling the strings, so to speak. And I'm really excited for this project, much more than a lot of the other ones that we've seen or that have come up. I had buyer's remorse after seeing the Jungle Book with I'm drawing a blank on his name. Jon Favreau. His Jungle Book. I was super excited about that. I love his mind. I love so many of the things he's been a part of in terms of, you know, being on screen or behind the scenes, and really let me down. And then it just was a domino effect there. And this is that I think they can rebound with this film. You know, I think Pinocchio adapts itself well to the live action as opposed to the other ones. There's going to be some CGI, but it's going to be more about the acting than anything else. And I think it's going to be a great story.
Now, is Joseph Gordon-Levitt voicing Pinocchio or is somebody else? Because I think he'd make a great Pinocchio, but, you know, if he's just one of the Lost Boys, I think it's going to be difficult.
I was actually wondering if he was going to do that or Jiminy Cricket.
Oh, that's cool.
Because
but then again, you got Keegan-Michael Key,
who would be a great Jiminy Cricket.
He would be a great Jiminy Cricket.
But I think having either of those voice actors, you win no matter which role they're in.
Oh yeah,
they're both absolutely amazing in whatever they do. I think that Keegan-Michael Key's Pinocchio what he does with his voice would work very well today. You know, like, I'm a real boy. Like that'd work really good. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt as like the conscience of it all with Jiminy Cricket, I think it'd be a good blend. But we're lucky to have both of them in there with Tom Hanks, with Zemeckis. I mean, what a project.
It's going to be amazing when it comes out. All right, now let's talk the big one. I mean, they spent most of the day on this, and obviously it's right up your alley. And looking at your pop collection behind you, and you know myself, and it's right up my alley. And you know we've got obviously more announcements we're going to talk about later here, but fifth 15 projects from Marvel. I think Feige's like lost his mind, and he's throwing every piece of Phase 4 and 5 into Disney Plus, outside the movies.
They were hurt very badly by not having theatrical releases and pushing their dates on everything. And I mean, in the US, we may have our theaters open, but like worldwide, there's a lot of theaters still closed because of, the COVID stuff and everything else. And so they had to take a different route than what they planned. And I think that's why we see so many projects now, because there were characters they wanted to introduce in shows, like how we're seeing the Echo show on its own, which is going to be introduced through Hawkeye. I imagine that's a secondary character that was going to come into play in movies and stuff, but now they need their own show. And it's a smart move. It's a calculated move, but I don't think it's one they intended to make a year ago.
So here's my thing. They announced 15 shows. Okay. But you still have to understand, you're still going to get a Loki season 2. So now you're at 16. You're still getting Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special that's being filmed in this week.
Which is not only a show, but it's canon for the Guardians franchise too. Where
James Gunn came out this week and said, you need to watch this to understand a portion of the movie.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, Disney's putting their money where their mouth is in terms of content, and so many people complained like, hey, we have nothing, during this whole thing. And now it's kind of like, how are you going to juggle all this? And I was talking to a friend the other day because, we saw Shang-Chi, we saw the Eternals and everything else. And it's like, we have all these new characters. Cool. And then you have all these Disney shows coming out, and you have Celestials, you have space, you have Earth fighters. Does everybody fit? Like, what are we doing here? And as much as I love the content, it's a lot going on.
Well, yeah, but then you got to throw in Bill Murray into Ant-Man and the Wasp on top of that.
Right. And so you have all the acting, and I was also talking the other day about the ages of these actors, and if you space these films out 3-5 years apart, and these projects, I mean, these scenes are pretty rigorous. You can only do so much, and even Mahershala Ali as Blade, he's not young.
No,
and so he's going to make an appearance in Moon Knight, and then he's going to be Blade, and they're trying to do trilogies with everything. So it's like, how long are they going to prolong all this while filming this other stuff? And kudos to them for the ambition.
I'm still calling it. We're going to see him in Mobius as well. I
wouldn't be surprised. And I mean, Sony pretty much showed their hand with the Venom end credit scene that we are one now. Sony's going to profit off of whatever Marvel does and just run with it that way. And
but talking about Sony and talking about the deals and the acquisitions that Marvel and Disney have made, I think one of the biggest surprise announcements from this whole Disney Plus day was that continuation of the 1997 XMen Cartoon. I mean, I loved that cartoon back in the day. That cartoon was solid. They better keep the theme song, because it was the best part about it.
That was my ringtone for 6 years.
Was it? Oh, that's awesome. But I miss it. But now knowing we're going to get it back, I think it's going to be cool. My kids were like, "What kind of cartoon is it?" I'm like, "You have no idea. It's brutal. It's awesome."
I loved the first 2 seasons of that cartoon. I rewatched it last year with my daughter, just kind of show her what it was about. And then I forgot that Marvel, during their bankruptcy time, sold all their stuff to everybody, and that included the X-Men cartoon. And so we have like a dubbed, voiced over, out of context story in the last season of that show. And so my mind, everybody else is like, oh, it's a continuation. In my mind is that last 26 episodes that were done by a different studio. I'm like, oh, we have a continuation. So I'm hoping that gets scrapped, and it's just kind of, we get the Rogue Gambit stories and stuff like that.
Sure.
And if they don't keep that theme song, they're dumb as hell, because it's so iconic. But it also, a lot of folks have been like, when are we going to get the X-Men in the MCU? And I'm not going to get into why I think we've already seen it in the films. We can do that another time. But it's a good entryway. They say that the cartoons like the What If was canon. Okay, we don't know how yet. We just know that we've seen stuff, and maybe it's just introducing the Watch or whatever. But if that's the sneaky way to get them in so that characters don't need backstories and they can just throw them into movies, it's perfect. And I think, I've long speculated that Rogue is going to be in Marvels because of her intro in the comics and everything else. It just makes sense. That's a perfect way to kind of make that neat and clean, where you don't need a ton of explanation because everybody's going to watch the cartoon. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a smart move. It's, in terms of budget, they don't have to put a ton of resources into it like they're doing. You know, I know that Disney kind of has crews working on skeleton crew type stuff because they haven't been making the money at the box office that they're accustomed to. And, you know, things are tight and they have a lot of big.
Well, they did with Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
They were surprised that they made that much money with Shang-Chi. I've
long wondered if they thought it would tank and that would justify them doing the streaming option and the theater option, you know, for that Black Widow lawsuit. And we blew up and it was fantastic. But I wonder if they were kind of like in the back of my mind, like, well, if it tanks, we can do both. And it didn't. And neither did Eternals. So
one of the things that I'm not clear about, you know, moving ahead is I know roughly Oscar Isaac is Moon Knight.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I heard, like you said earlier, Mahershala Ali is going to be Blade in that as well.
Yes.
And that's going to be his formal introduction. But I have no clue anything about Moon Knight. All I heard was on the release and on the announcement trailer is that like he's like schizophrenic.
Yep. In a way. So he answers to Khonshu, which is an Egyptian god. And, you know, he's the son of a Jewish rabbi. He went through a lot. He was an operative. I'm hoping that they introduce Bushman in this. But he is a mercenary and he fights against other mercenaries too. He's a man operating on good I don't want to spoil too much. That's why I'm trying not to get too specific about it. Because I know that they're going to dive deep into that probably the first season, but he's a man who operates on good conscience, but he was possessed basically by an Egyptian god. And that's what drives his madness. And he operates under 4 different personalities, which is kind of wild to think. So he does have dissociative identity disorder, which in some stories it was called, you know, schizophrenia, things like that. But he has different personalities that he goes under. He's got the Traveler, the Pathfinder, the Embracer, and the Defender. Well, the Defender, those who travel at night. And so basically he's grappling with all of these while trying to do the right thing and doesn't always do the right thing.
So is he like an anti-hero?
In some ways, yeah. He's a troubled individual who wants to do the right thing, but he doesn't have a problem doing what he needs to do to make that happen. So think of Batman, but with some gusto, I guess. You know, he doesn't draw the line. And he's crossed paths with everyone from SpiderMan to the Punisher. I'm really excited about where this is going to go. And, you know, the show, they're saying that we're going to get Blade, we're going to get Dracula. And it's...
How can you do Dracula when you have Blade and Mobius?
Well, because Blade's first appearance was Tomb of Dracula. And so that sets up yet another villain for it. And it would make sense, you know, a lot of these paths cross. And Moon Knight's going to be one of those ones where, you know, Mark Spector isn't one of those like one shot, he's over here kind of things. He's been in everybody's storyline. And somehow a lot of people don't know about him, you know, in terms of the comics. So I think it's going to be interesting. I don't think Mobius is going to have anything to do with Moon Knight yet. I think Mobius is going to be more of a down the road kind of thing. Not Mobius, Morbius. Mobius is Loki. But I think that I think this is really going to set up a lot, you know, especially when, you know, like the Egyptian god stuff and everything else, and him and Blade teaming up is going to be great. We've already seen Blade sort of once, and I don't think folks realize that. So check out some.
Heard Blade.
Yes. Okay. So some folks do know. Blade. So it's there. We're not waiting until Moon Knight to completely introduce Blade, but on screen we are. And Oscar Isaac is such an incredible actor, and you know, watching him just scream, you know, in this trailer and stuff like that.
Yeah, because he didn't get a chance to move around as Apocalypse.
Right. Oh God, I don't know. That was just a trash heap of film, but
I had to throw that in there. And he was never really happy as Poe Dameron.
No. This film is this show is really gonna show his range as an actor, and it has to because of who this character is. I will say, so it's my second favorite Marvel character. My first is Black Panther. In the comics, it always has been. But it's a character who isn't always written well because they tend to dive into the mental health stuff or the killing stuff, and they don't flesh out the character enough. We now have an actor that can do that.
Sure.
And I think the directive crew is going to be great. And I don't want to spoil a lot because I think it's going to be the Fist of Khonshu run, which is like a 4-issue series that we had in the comics. And I think that's the arc they're taking for the show. And I could say 3 things to spoil it all. And so I just want folks to really tune in on that. But if you're looking to read, they're cheap comics. Just check them out. You can even read them online for free. But the Fist of Khonshu series is.
I'm sure we're going to get plenty of toys on it.
Oh,
I'm sure there's going to be a ton of toys.
Yeah, and the toy lines are going to be cool because he's one of those characters, with his garb, all the wrinkles and everything else. I think the legends are going to be great. I think if we can get an old school toy with like the actual fabric for his suit and stuff, that'd be awesome. And I will surely buy every single one because it's nice to finally see. I was so pumped when Black Panther got filmed, and now my second.
You better not say that too loud because your wife's in the other room.
I know, but I'm in the comic room, so it's a place of solace.
Oh, okay.
That's where I get immunity.
Speaking of immunity, that's actually a great segue, dude. SheHulk.
Oh yes,
that trailer was awesome for SheHulk.
Yeah,
I mean, not only do we obviously you see the Professor Hulk is back. Okay, after what just happened with Shang-Chi, we don't have any explanation of how he's back to Bruce yet. But what I did notice in the SheHulk is his arm is fully healed.
Yes.
So did that, and this is the question, did that take place in the 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame? That's number one. Number two, they're doing a comic accurate costume for her.
Yep.
But the third most exciting feature was that attorney ambulance chasing style TV commercial and they dropped the line, "Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." But it's her saying it instead of, Bruce. I thought that was great.
Yeah. It seems like they're going to be comic accurate. And a lot of people are going to say, and I've already heard this from folks, that it's a ripoff of Deadpool, when quite frankly, She-Hulk's been around for a lot of years, and that breaking the fourth wall and all that stuff, that was She-Hulk, long before Deadpool. And so I'm really excited to see it on screen. It's one that I thought would be a great adaptation. I thought they'd go animated. So the fact that it's a live series is going to be incredible. I'm wondering when it takes place, because we have Bruce at the end of Shang-Chi and then we have Bruce here. So is it before or is it after? And we're going to see a lot of timeline jumping right now, I think, especially because of the Eternals, where are we now? And when everything comes together, I'd like to think that it's after and we get to kind of skip over a lot of hashing out of stuff. But if it's before, my thought is that it sets up a lot of stuff, where Wong is at the end of Shang-Chi, he brings Katie and Shang, with him. I'm hoping that it kind of leads us up to the moment that comes to, because I think that's a much bigger moment than it seems at that moment. And so I'm hoping that, it might be before, and we're kind of getting all these tales of what happened prior to whatever big event is coming up.
Well, the one thing that they did say also was that Tim Roth is coming back as Abomination, and he's planning on being in She-Hulk.
Yes.
So that's why it's leading me to believe that this could be in that 5-year window between Infinity War and Endgame because of that, not only because Hulk's arm is normal, but because what was Bruce doing when he found Professor Hulk that whole time? It didn't address it.
Right.
He just, 1 minute he was Bruce, locked into the Hulkbuster armor. And then the next minute he was taking care of Tony, and then 5 years later, he's Professor Hulk.
Yeah.
There was no explanation there.
That's very true. And, they're also setting up the Thunderbolts. And so we have Abomination, things like that too. So I think that there's going to be a lot of breadcrumbs being laid, and we might get some backstory. The only thing I hope is that She-Hulk series isn't used to set up the Hulk. I want it to be her series, and we get that stuff. And I'm hoping that we kind of, by seeing him in an uncredited scene and all this other stuff, I'm hoping he just pops up different places because, with the filming rights, he can't have his own film. And so we have to get it wherever we can.
Sure.
Until Disney just says, give us everything, and, they Thanos the whole business. But
I really
for right now, we have to get breadcrumbs where we can.
Why they haven't done that yet.
Right. So he's the one character. He's such a huge character. I don't think he'll ever be fleshed out completely. I'm hoping by the time they actually do the Defenders that he will be. But I think that we're going to have to rely on all these end credit scenes and She-Hulk, which is going to be a huge avenue for him. But I hope that it's not, I don't want a whole episode dedicated to him and what happened. And so, I'm hoping that they piece it out enough, because this is going to be a She-Hulk series. It's going to be fun. Charlie Cox looks to be in it. I won't say as Daredevil. I don't like to spin the speculation reel, but
all right. So okay. So you just like perked me when you said Charlie Cox is, with reprising Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
We already know the one rumor of Charlie Cox going to be in SpiderMan No Way Home.
Right.
Everybody's freaking out about that. I heard something yesterday that completely blew my mind. Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that if you watch the trailer, the one gang that's, going to interrogate him, that he says, I hope you brought more guys. That's the tracksuit gang. They're saying by episode 5, you're finally going to see the big reveal of the villain, and it's Kingpin. And that we're going to get, Vincent D'Onofrio again as Kingpin.
I will lose my mind.
Same here. Because he down 1,000% was the best Kingpin adaptation I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He was incredible. Okay.
He actually, I think, is one of the best performances we've gotten from any of the Marvel projects.
Absolutely. And seeing and understanding this tracksuit gang and hearing about this, and then seeing another report how they're going to relaunch Daredevil and keep Charlie Cox in the role. They've got to keep him. He's got to be Kingpin.
Well, he's also been begging to reprise the role, but they're also making an Echo series, and Echo is Kingpin's stepdaughter. So it makes perfect sense because Echo is going to be introduced during Hawkeye, just like in the comic books. And so, I didn't even tease Vincent with that. I've just been kind of like hinging on like what's going to come and where we're at. But I mean, Echo was first in Daredevil #9.
Yeah.
And it's a great issue. It was a great run. This whole thing, we're getting like Kate Bishop and all that stuff. Like, it was a fun read. But if Kingpin's the villain, that really makes sense. I was talking to you earlier. I don't understand how we have an Echo series. If Kingpin's the villain in that, it's not a character who's one and done. So that would make so much sense as to why Echo needs her own show. Mm-hmm. Also, another deaf character being brought into the forefront by Disney. So that's really cool for representation and, that community. But you're kind of blowing my mind right now because I didn't even think about getting him back quite yet. And
I follow Vincent's Twitter feed, and he is so cryptic a lot of times with some of his tweets and some of his replies. But then there's other ones that he comes back with and said, I would be honored to rejoin it again. I loved playing the character because he's so humble and he's such a down-to-earth guy. I'm going to talk like I've met the guy. I have not met the guy. I would love to meet the guy. He's amazing,
right.
But he was such an amazing character for that Daredevil series that transferred into when they made the Defenders and when they made, those other, Netflix shows in those characters. He was the one that grounded really them all together, which was phenomenal.
Well, in the Charlie Cox rumors, I like to think of them as more than just rumors right now because it's clear he's coming back. We saw him in SheHulk trailer. And, I like to think that it's more than just that, but you can't bring him back and not bring Kingpin back by any means. And, I mean, having that villain in the MCU.
And if you're bringing him back, let's do it. We got to bring Bernthal back as Punisher. It's got to happen.
He's the best Punisher we've had, yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, all of them are ready and willing and want to, and the characters are already, whether you want to retcon them or not, they're already established. We know who these characters are. And once that Netflix deal wears off, I think they'll be on Disney Plus anyway, so anybody can rewatch. And
well, they'll go to Hulu.
Yeah.
They'll go to Hulu because Disney Plus, it may be a little too violent for Disney Plus, especially when we're talking Punisher.
They'll go to Hulu with MODOK and hang out there.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
But no, I think that reveal would be pretty incredible because it's a villain who doesn't have to be your hyper super villain and can kind of hang in the background and pull the strings for a lot of ways. And, I know that the Tom Holland contract keeps coming up and keeps getting changed and extended and all that stuff. Kingpin's a big Spider-Man villain. And so it doesn't matter which Spider-Man we have, whatever Sony does.
Should he be the final villain in the movie?
It could be. And, there's a lot of interesting parts there. And, when they think about the Spider-Verse and all that stuff, Kingpin's a big player there too. So we're blending multiverses and he's like the one grounded human that went through the multiverses. So it's definitely an interesting play. And I think it's a smart one.
Yeah. So, all right. So we're doing a lot of what ifs here. Speaking of what if, it's another one. Ding, hit the bell for the segue over here. What If season 2?
Yeah.
That got announced. Now, we kind of knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Because they had said that they made 2 other episodes, but they wanted to keep those in season 2 if there was going to be a season 2. I've been along the guy is saying, if Marvel says maybe there'll be a season 2, it's always going to get a season 2.
They never don't.
Because Feige's got stuff planned 15 years down the road, because that's just who he is. I wish he'd get a Star Wars movie planned and done, but I mean, we're talking, Marvel. So I was very happy with What If. I thought it was really, really cool. I think it honored Chadwick Boseman in such a phenomenal way that he took that Star-Lord character to new heights.
Yeah.
But I loved how human he made it.
It was nice to see him back, I guess you could say. I mean, he was so iconic in the short time that he was in the MCU. And I think they did him some justice in that series. I wasn't a huge fan of What If, and my main reason simply is that when the words were coming out, the mouth movements didn't match, and that drove me nuts. But the stories were fun. They were cool. They did a lot of throwbacks to what we've seen, and they called it canon, which is why I was wondering when we'd see the zombies, because you don't just make a zombies episode and not do anything. And so here we are with the zombies now. And what the What If does for them as a company too is the amount of toys, pops, collectibles that can come out based on all of that. I mean, their What If run, what was it, 8 episodes? And look how many pops alone came from that.
Dude, then you got the Marvel Legends series of What If. Yeah, we cannot keep those in stock. We've had 2 restocks already. Yeah, and it's only like 6 or 7 figures, but it's another one of those build-a-figure packages that everybody's like, the only way to get the watchers to buy them all. They love it. Like on my desk, on my desk at work, not here. I have a zombie Captain America, and the detail on that figure, I have never seen a figure with such small details in my life. They actually took, and obviously when they make an action figure, they make the thigh first, and then they get the connection for the kneecap and the knee, and then they go down to the lower leg of the calf. They actually drilled holes and put gore and holes through the molds to make it look like half of his leg was missing in the flesh, but still continued with how rigid and how strong the actual leg was to hold the figure and everything else up. Yeah, they really did their homework when they did these zombie figures. And the fact that we're getting a whole separate season, I want to see more Peter Parker as the supreme Spider-Man or whatever you're going to call him next.
Oh yeah, and I mean, cool. What If set all that up, and we got the zombies in Ultimate Fantastic Four 21. That was their debut, and it was a nice 5-issue run of different things that happened. But what I'm hoping, and this might be a little bit optimistic, is that was a Reed Richards run, Fantastic Four. It's a nice way, they're calling these cartoons canon, and it's a nice way to introduce the Fantastic Four without having to introduce the Fantastic Four on the screen, on the big screen. And so I know that they're, we're on phase 4 or 5, and how many years can you wait before introducing these characters, as you're building it up? And so,
well, John Watts has got his own Fantastic Four movie coming.
Right. And so I'm hoping that we get some of these intros. I'm not a big backstory movie fan, but if we can get them in cartoons, kind of flesh it out, move forward, I think that'd be awesome. And we got the XMen cartoon coming. Nobody saw that coming. We know the Fantastic Four are coming. So if we can get them kind of introduced through these cartoons, I think that's a good way to do it. And with What If, there were so many team ups. I mean, Spider-Man and Morbius teamed up in a What If, and in Marvel team ups. And so there's a lot of wiggle room in these What Ifs. Doctor Doom gets a lot of play in What Ifs. So I'm hoping they take a lot of creative freedom with this, and not just with the characters we've seen and not a reimagining of them, but just to introduce some characters that we know are coming down the pipeline. It makes it easy on them actually to do it that way. Yeah.
One of the things that I thought was cool when, talking the animation was that X-Men 97 we're getting the second season of What If, whether you liked it or not. But then this whole announcement with we're going to get Spider-Man freshman years. And it's not a new Spider-Man. It's going to be an origin story for the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Everybody's been asking, people have been asking for years. They want to see how he got the bite, what happened with Uncle Ben. And, I think we're going to get a lot of this. Yeah. The other thing that concerns me is that you're going to have those supporting characters like, Ned and MJ and everybody else from school, the rivalry between him and Flash. But how is that going to change our views on those characters because of what may or may not happen in No Way Home? Because one of the things that I heard in No Way Home is that Ned dies. Or there's two things. I heard Ned either dies, or two, Ned becomes the victim of a pumpkin bomb and becomes Hobgoblin.
Yes. Based on the look of Ned over the last year, and he's more jacked than I was playing high school football at this point, I'd go the Hobgoblin route, and I think that's definitely coming. That opens up a lot of... Spider-Man's one character, but his villains are so many, and they extend across heroes that they interact with. So if you introduce Hobgoblin, one more character, and maybe even if it's in like an end credit scene kind of thing to move it forward, that can transcend any character. It could, whether they stick with Tom Holland for another 3 Spider-Man movies or they go to Miles, it doesn't matter. It can still be a character that exists. But I think it's also going to be one that drives the cartoon, with, we also have Flash in there too, which is another character, so I think that there's a lot of potential there where they're not limited to what they can do, but they can introduce more Spidey villains that'll be able to appear in a lot of other franchises.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be great. But one of the cool things about doing backstories is, like you said earlier, you can fill in gaps.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that, James Gunn is doing, and with their announcement of the I Am Groot series. You're going to be able to see Baby Groot, and because everybody loves Baby Groot, just like, Baby Yoda, Baby Groot's going to get his own I Am Groot animated series. It's going to be set, hopefully between Guardians 2 and Infinity War. So you're going to see how he becomes the video game toting, teenage Groot that everybody, gets twisted and pissed at. I think that's going to be great. But that also is going to fall in line with Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special.
Yeah.
So we're talking 2 major Guardians moves in the announcement from Disney Plus Day. But one of the concerns that I have is not even with those projects. It's the Ironheart project.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen with that because of the controversy swirling around, Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever.
I've been anticipating Black Panther 2 so much, even after, Chadwick passed and everything like that. And then my daughter and I read Riri. We love Riri ever since she appeared in Invincible Iron Man. And Riri appears in Wakanda. That's her debut. And that sets up the Ironheart series. But it's also part of the World of Wakanda franchise. And, Letitia Wright, regardless of however you feel on the matter, she's not into getting vaccinated. She's recovering from her injury in London, so she can't travel back to Georgia to resume filming. And that opens up a lot of, potential for what are we doing? And Ryan Coogler has already said it's going to take a while to rewrite, if I ever had to rewrite. They're not counting her out. They're hoping to get her back. But what I'm hearing recently from folks who are really wrong is that Ratchet's own Mr. Duke there, who played M'Baku, could potentially take the reins of Black Panther if necessary.
Has he been back here since he got that role?
I'm not sure. I hope so.
This might be a shameless plug for the George Eastman house to bring his ass back to, do one of those galas at night. I mean, we had Michael Keaton. Yeah. He came back to town. You get Batman himself to come back to town. You get Julia Roberts. I think you can get Winston Duke. I mean, we really need to honor that man, being from Rochester and all.
And what's sad is actually he didn't even get the love from Rochester for being in that film. It's like nobody knew him. I mean, the man was a lot of the heart of the movie. And I also loved how Marvel, he debuted as Man-Ape in the comics. And I love that Marvel was like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to have M'Baku and, and it'd be really amazing for the community of him taking that mantle too, because Rochester's a city, we're a big city, but something on that level right there is amazing. Plus we got our ties, SpiderMan filmed here, that kind of stuff. So maybe we could become a comic book city. That'd be fun.
Great.
But the Letitia Wright stuff is really just throwing a lot of things kind of off an even keel because it's going to delay other projects no matter what. And if you notice, Disney's getting a little bit, how to say, they're not releasing their release dates as rapidly as they used to. They're not confirming dates. And I mean, even the SpiderMan trailer, which we're going to talk about, they delayed it for a reason. And it wasn't just to do what they're doing. It's because, in China, some theaters aren't open. And in some markets, there's certain posters that they won't accept. And so they're not showing movies. And
certain scenes they won't accept.
Right. And it's all about the money at the end of the day. And so they're trying to take a stand in terms of, representation and what they're trying to put in the movies, but also making their dollar. And it's a tough spot to be in as a company, especially one who has taken such a hit with, Black Widow going on streaming and lawsuits, and, all that kind of stuff, even though ScarJo's coming back in another Disney project. So clearly they're okay again. But there's a lot of layers to it that I don't think people are really thinking about. They're just like, I want this trailer, I want this movie, give me it now and give me the date.
Well, it's crazy how this pandemic's affected everybody. Mm-hmm. And watching a studio and a company like Disney, knowing the money that they've got behind everything. First of all, they had to close their 2 main parks.
Yep.
But they also had to close the other global parks. And they stayed closed for almost 7 months.
Yep.
It's not even, fathomable to understand how much money they lost, per day.
Yeah.
Between hotels, dining plans, parks. I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, my wife and I and the kids, we go every 2 years. Knowing the cost.
Yeah.
Knowing they just put $4 billion, not into one, but to 2 Star Wars Galaxy's Edge parks. They just built them, created them, and then having to close the next year. The money that it takes to make these films, the money it takes to make these shows, to be able to rebound the way that they're doing is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, what are the other studios doing? What is their problem? Why aren't they churning out content like Disney is?
They can't compete. And then, I mean, we're seeing like Warner Brothers is trying to sell off DC in different pieces at this point, to different buyers. They want to sell off their comics division. They want to sell off all the stuff and just be left with the movies. And whereas opposed to,
and they keep screwing them up.
And they do. And
but,
Disney,
Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think you and I have different opinions on that. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was amazing. Josh Whedon destroyed that movie to what it could have been. Okay, and I've always been a Whedon fan. Mm-hmm. I cannot believe he destroyed it the way he did. The anticipation for the new Flash movie, knowing what they're doing in the Flash movie, and they keep, everything else they don't want to talk about.
We know the difference. So Marvel last year released new zombies covers. They did zombie variants. Marvel had Blade covers leading into these projects before they're announced. DC's like, here's 9 Batman runs at the same time. What are we doing? And so they're not working in conjunction with the studio. Whereas Marvel and Disney are very tightly knit in all this stuff. And, every time I see some random Darkhawk came back as a comic, we're on issue 3 right now. Darkhawk's one I've always wanted to see on film. And the second that popped up in Kazar 2, I said at, a local comic shop, I was like, at Rhino's, I said, hey, we're probably getting a movie or a TV show soon. And they don't just release these comics for no reason. And so that's where, they kind of get people drawn in, because even if you're not a comic reader, you see them, and Wegmans now has comic books on the side, you see these things, you're like, huh.
Wegmans had comic books years ago.
Yes.
And they got rid of them.
And now they have them back.
And they got them back.
And these covers are appearing and stuff. And I'm like, it's not just by coincidence. It's because they coordinate. Whereas, the other studios, the other projects don't do that. If the independent studios started to do that kind of stuff, for the stuff like Oblivion's coming out from, I think it's Image or Boom, one of them. Nobody knows what that is. Jake Gyllenhaal's set to be the lead in it, and nobody knows because there's no marketing, So Disney works with Marvel, and they get all this stuff out, and it's all related, and it's smart, it's genius, and they do it years in advance to kind of get the mind going. And I think that's where they're really smart. And yeah, they're juggling a lot right now, but I wish that and I'm in a lot of communities. I have my podcast, my YouTube channel, like all that stuff. And folks are always like, when do we get this trailer? I want the release date. I want this appearance. And it's like, whoa, do you realize how many pieces they are juggling at the moment just to give you the experience that you're hoping for? Like, the Eternals just came out. Everybody's crapping on it for different reasons, but they just introduced 10 new characters to the MCU in one film. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I love the effort, the energy, the intent behind it. It's unprecedented.
Plus the characters in the Stinger scene. So
yeah,
you had two more there that were pretty big.
Yeah, and
one I think we both agree is, but he could keep the role well.
We could be pleasantly surprised.
Yes. But perfect example. Going back to what we were talking about with these other studios, Top Gun Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
The movie's been done for 2 years. He has already filmed another Mission Impossible movie.
Yep.
Okay. Yet they keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. Your first trailer came out over a year ago, and I understand COVID. I get COVID. Yeah. I get it. I understand it. Next July? Really? What are they thinking?
With the streaming capabilities, and yes, I know a lot of people like to watch them at home, you can restructure contracts to work in the streaming to get the projects out and then do a re-release in the theater. Like, hey, you loved it so much at home. Now's your chance to see it in the theater.
Yeah.
Do a re-release, double your money.
And I think I don't even think it's the studio as much as it is Tom Cruise.
Yeah, very well could be. I don't think that these studios and companies are being as smart as they could be. I think that right now, HBO Max having the DC stuff is smart because they're saying, here's both options. We're paying our actors for both, so that they don't get into the Black Widow situation. Peacemaker series coming in January. Suicide Squad from James Gunn was I thought was great.
Oh yeah.
But their streams on it was through the roof, and so it's like, if these studios could find a way to balance all of that, even if one partners with, like, say, Netflix or something like that, find a way to do that, get these movies out, and then say, you know what? Now we can put it in the theater. You want to come see the theater? Bring the family and double revenue. And it would be amazing, and it keeps up. A lot of these projects are like half done. I get that the actors maybe can't be on set for whatever the COVID protocols are, but that's not that long in the grand scheme of things. And so you can make it happen. It's just a matter of how you do it. And so that's why I give Kevin Feige so much credit, though. He's balancing all these pieces together. I mean, 15 projects right there, not to mention the ones that were here, not to mention the delays. And his actors aren't getting any younger. I mean, not everybody's going to stay looking like Paul Rudd for their entire life. I don't know what level playing field he's on. So he's juggling all this, knowing that stuff might be delayed, knowing the age of his actors, and still making it happen. So to any fan listening, like, just pump the brakes, take what they give you. Like, stop demanding a new trailer every day. Stop all.
You're going to get toys for it. Don't worry.
Yes, there's all the toys in the world.
It's crazy.
And actually, with every announcement, I always look at toy releases as like the next big thing for what we're getting, because they always seem to come out right before announcements are made. So I'm really looking at the Blade toys that come out, because I'm like, what are we getting there?
So here's funny thing. And we actually talk about this, over on the TikTok channel for ToyShnip. And we actually showed in the Eternals unboxing for the Legend series how they're doing it now over at Hasbro. And I never knew this. Dan, you know me. I got a giant Millennium Falcon behind me. I've been collecting toys for years. Okay. I started ToyShnip, and the first thing one of our owners said to me, he says, you have to understand. He says, you got two choices. You can obviously go through all the stuff with the unboxing and understand what you're going to get yourself into, because you're going to follow down the rabbit hole, or ignore it all and just push out, the brand. And I said, well, you got to be all inclusive. And he's like, well, you're going to get the spoilers. I said, what do you mean spoilers? He goes, Star Wars, for example, he goes, we get the waves of figures sometimes 2-3 months ahead before the movie releases. He goes, and on the boxes, Hasbro's now into code names. And they'll give you code names, and then you'll get a manifest list of who's in the box. And you can't open the box before X date and put it on the shelf. I'm like, okay. So, like, we had Ghostbusters Afterlife come in, and you'll see it this week in the video. Ghostbusters Afterlife, there's 8 figures, I believe, 6 or 8 figures. And on the boxes One said Gemini, the other was Capricorn, the other was Leo. And it's like we're playing with the guys in the warehouse. All right, guess who's in the box? Almost like the Brad Pitt, what's in the box? Yeah. But it's like they're going with the secrecy of all the spoilers and stuff like that. They're going to that extreme. Like if you search Hasbro Gemini code word, you're not going to find Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Right.
They're doing these things as far as security goes, and they're doing them right. Every one of these Marvel figures that come out are now codenamed.
I love it though. I mean, that's, when we talk about studios and everything else, that's putting everything together. That's these companies working to preserve the experience, but also put stuff out there to make you excited. And you don't see that happening with other stuff. You just,
it was so sad because we got all the toys in. I think they came in July. Naftali was telling me for Eternals, but they had August dates on the box.
Oh yeah.
Because the movie was originally supposed to come out in August. Well, it comes out in October. Everybody knows the first main case. We get another case in like the week the movie opens. And it says January is the open date for the box. And I'm like, what? The movie's out. Who can it spoil? So I opened it up. And it was the Deviant, the main Crow. And that was just a cool figure. And it's on the website. It's really cool. But now we've got like all these things for like WandaVision that are coming back that we're starting to get in. And we had like, and this is great, we had this little brooch come in. It's a pin. Well, it's Agatha.
Oh, nice.
And who knew that 2 days ago they're going to announce Agatha House of Harkness for Disney Plus Day? And we get these little brooches in 2 weeks ago. We just thought they were, because they're still labeled WandaVision.
Yeah.
Like, what?
That's why I always say follow the breadcrumbs, because they work in conjunction with each other so well, and it's always there.
Sure. And following breadcrumbs, I mean, we've seen so many breadcrumbs being thrown at us lately in the past couple of years by Marvel. It's crazy. I mean, the first big breadcrumb was when they talked about Sword, Nick Fury being in space actually during Far From Home. But then in WandaVision, Maria Rambeau in the end gets taken into the movie theater, and you've got Skrulls. And now we're talking Secret Invasion, and we're talking Old Man Nick Fury.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How far in the future is this going to be set?
I mean, if you think about it, though, Nick Fury's done through 20 projects. So he's I'd be Danny Glover Nick Fury if I were him at this time. I'm too old for this shit.
What was his original deal? Wasn't it like 9 or 12 pictures?
I believe it was 10.
Was it 10?
Because he was supposed to get through the 10? Iron Man. Oh yeah, because he extended his contract, I think 6 years ago. He extended to a film by film, and I mean, it's just.
But he nobody thought about like the involvement with him, and this is where it like gets crazy. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I love the show. The first 2 seasons were incredible. When they did the whole tie-ins with Winter Soldier and back and forth with Fury, I thought the writing was spot on. Then it got a little crazy.
Yeah, I think because, they were trying to link up to when the Inhumans came, and that was a bomb, and the studio knew it was a bomb and walked away quickly. But they were trying to tie in all these TV projects that weren't necessarily in the MCU.
Yeah.
Because of rights and stuff like that. So, man, you're right, though. The first 2 seasons that were great, and then it just tanked because they were trying to ramp up to something that didn't exist. And then I think that they thought some of those characters we brought into the MCU, and it just didn't happen. Like Quake, I think that they were building up to like bring her in, and then it just never happened. Yeah,
I mean, one of the coolest episodes I thought they ever did was obviously that you had the Nick Fury episodes. Yeah. Where Coulson finally found out and figured out, and he went blasting Fury and on the jet, and Fury's just sitting there going, I'm sorry. Right. But then the last episode, I think it was season 2, when Coulson gets pulled away in the very last scene, and he walks into like the command central in the bunker, and he's like, you got the location. They're like, yes, we finally got the location on the scepter. And he says, send in the Avengers.
Yeah.
And that was the opening for Age of Ultron.
Right.
I thought that was phenomenal how that was written. But then they did nothing with it. And everybody's thinking, oh my God, are we finally going to get to see Robert Downey Jr.'s reaction to seeing Phil Coulson alive?
Right.
Knowing that Fury lied to him. Again.
Yep.
Are we going to get that? We never got it.
There was a lot of disjointed stuff in the studio there. And I think Kevin Feige alluded to it a lot in his interviews and what he wanted to happen as opposed to what could and couldn't happen. And, that's back when rights were still up in the air and there was certain stuff they could do. And I mean, they couldn't even say Hulk's name on the freaking show, so it's, he was, and there's a lot of the Sony stuff too, where like, if you look at him answering questions like 3 years ago about Sony stuff, and he just rolls his eyes and like sighs, there's so much I think that he wanted to do, but he hasn't been able to do. And I think those shows are a perfect example of it where, they could go off of when Winter Soldier ended. That's when the show picked up kind of stuff. And, I remember the trailer being in the middle of it and that kind of stuff, but that's the extent they could go to. And then it's, that was it. So they could use Coulson because he's a nobody kind of character in terms of licensing rights, but they can't use the other stuff. And it was all downhill. And that's why I'm happy now that the Netflix rights are expiring too, because they can start to bring those characters either in or back. Yeah.
Because they kind of did the same thing with Luke Cage.
Yeah, they did.
In season 1, when with Copperhead, he got his suit from Hammer Tech.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I'm like, oh, they're tying it together. It's a great move.
And then it ended there.
Yeah.
So now that these rights are expiring, I think that we're going to see some callbacks. I think we're going to see all those in. I hope that, the Charlie Cox Daredevil stuff and your Kingpin that you sprung on me that I'm so excited about, we can finally see Feige do that in the way that his vision saw it. And he's using directors that not only he can trust, but the fans can trust to do something right by these characters. It's, if you look, they're not just directing a movie. Like James Gunn has legit read all of the stuff he's directing and he's into it. And, he's
how he films it.
Yeah. Yeah.
With writing storyboards for every single scene himself.
Yep. And I mean, Guardians 3 has a Rocket backstory. We have the Groot cartoon from the dude debuted in 1960 and Tales of Suspense. I think everybody thinks he's just this new tree character, but his origin is much sooner than a lot of the Guardians we've seen, So he's deeply invested in it. And even, Deadpool's going to come along at some point. Ryan Reynolds has pretty much willed this to happen because of how much he's a fan of the character. And, so we're seeing people who are passionate about these projects as opposed to people who are just making comic book movies. And they're not bringing directors on for that. Like even Chloe Zhao, for the Eternals, they brought her on because she was a fan of the Eternals, not just because she's an acclaimed director. And so when you have passion at the top and passion trickling down, you just get great material. And I think that's the difference between them and a lot of studios. They bring on big filmmakers, big writers, but not for the right reasons. And so I know that everybody wants everything now, but just kudos to Feige for everything he's woven together. And when they gave him complete control, I was like, so it's one vision, but it's not because he delegates so well out there too.
And it excites me for what's going to happen now that, with Filoni.
Oh yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
With now getting that control and what Favreau and him are doing is just incredible. A couple last points I want to talk about. And obviously we've touched on it a little bit during this time is the announcement that came out yesterday for what's happening Tuesday. Because like the feeds, the social feeds, the Reddits, they're going absolutely bonkers because they're finally going to give everybody the trailer for Spider-Man.
So I have a friend who works closely with the studio, I'll say.
Everybody's got friends.
Without saying too much. And so I don't know if you saw the other day, I posted about why is everybody flipping out about this trailer like they won't see it. So I knew about 2 weeks ago that this was coming. And so I think even in my latest blog this week, I said, hey, just wait, kind of thing.
Just wait, it's coming.
Yeah. And so this is Disney being Disney, capitalizing on the anticipation of all these fans. And so Tuesday, they're releasing the trailer. They're even saying it's going to be huge, meaning they're going to release a lot more, I think, than they planned on because the Sony leaks were real. And it's not Sony versus Marvel. It's just Sony trying to say, give us some money, more movies coming out. And so
the fact that Tom Holland's charity contest launched yesterday of him walking down the street in LA, come to the Spider-Man premiere with me.
Andrew Garfield's there. And
that's the thing this morning. Andrew Garfield's been spotted in LA. And so is Tobey Maguire this weekend. Okay, so they're going to hang out in L.A. with
never
Tom.
Hanging out before. Never friends before.
No, they're not allowed out of the basement. They're chained to the walls until Tuesday.
And I think, it's going to be epic if they do that. And I think we all know they are at this point. And I think Marvel's even tipped their hat to it a bit. But I want to have folks temper your expectations. It's not going to be a full movie of all three of them together fighting crime. It could be 10 seconds, 2 minutes, but it's not going to be about that. It's about what's happening in this universe to set up the next Doctor Strange. So this isn't just a Peter Parker movie. It sets up everything moving forward. And
then what's going to happen in Doctor Strange? They may return in Doctor Strange.
Right.
We don't know.
Like, honestly, it could very well be that these characters are all coming in as an end credit scene too. So temper your expectations. This movie is going to be epic. It's going to be the biggest thing Marvel's done yet. There's a reason why they waited to release these trailers too. They didn't know if they could even release it, when they didn't have a firm release date just a couple months ago because they didn't know what was happening with theaters worldwide, and they want to capitalize on this film. So for everybody, I know that, pants have been on fire trying to get this thing out, and I get it. But they were smart to wait to release it, because if they released it and had to delay the movie another 6 months, then folks want a third and fourth trailer, so they're smart. This is a big event. They have fans getting this preview first. We should have it by, I would say, Tuesday, 11 p.m. probably will have it. I'm going to have it Tuesday morning, I believe. And it's going to be big, but I would just temper your expectations. It's not going to be nearly as big as you think it's going to be. It's not going to be.
That's what Feige said last week.
Oh, did he? I missed that part.
Even Feige came out and said, listen, I don't want to ruin your expectations. Some of the rumors are true. Some of the rumors are not true.
Right.
And for everybody to make sure that everybody's not disappointed.
I think that there's also, holy crap, so I'm connecting some dots. There's a reason why Hawkeye is premiering when it is and SpiderMan comes out when it is. And our genius in residence here pointed out Kingpin. And that could very well be a nice connection now that I'm piecing out the dates and episode air dates between when the film comes out. So definitely dive into Hawkeye while you're waiting for Spider-Man to come out, because I think that could be a big connection right there. But there's a reason for it. And to be quite honest, we might get Tobey Maguire for 2 minutes, Andrew Garfield for 2 minutes. We're going to get the villains a lot. But the Spider-Man traveling together could be an end credit scene. I know that there's a push from the fan base, and if you follow the comics, for Miles to kind of come in, and I think it's going to take place after Sony releases the next Into the Spider-Verse, inevitably kind of thing. And
yeah, we're like 3 years away from Miles even being introduced, I think.
But some of these villains are inevitable for that, and if you look at how spaced out these movies are, it's like that. So I mean, we could very well see the demise of Spider-Man by the end of Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. And
Holland said
his contract's not forever. He said he'd play the character forever, but he's not signed forever. And so. And we know that Tobey Maguire is not going to be our next Spider-Man for years to come. So, temper your expectations. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of possibilities, but the sense of wonderment going into this film, I'm hoping that this trailer doesn't give off too much. I hope it just gives the fans what they want. Do all three linked up doing a hoedown or something like that, and just move on, because we're only a month away, folks. And, they have some really exciting projects coming out on top of that. Like, I know it's the biggest thing, but even the Miss Marvel trailer, where it was basically a preview of, the next Captain Marvel, it's, I mean, it's,
and I love people's reactions. It looks like she's cosplaying.
Oh my God.
Come on. She is. She's a kid.
I had multiple friends say that. I went to Rhino's Comics, I bought the trades, and I mailed them to all of them and said, read this before you watch anything. There's a lot coming up. And if you look at these previews, I know that they were 30 seconds long, maybe. They're alluding to a lot of connectivity through this universe where it seems like nothing should make sense, yet it makes absolute sense. So temper your expectations for a lot of it. You're not going to get everything you want, but they gave us so much to love that we should just appreciate what they just gave us. And this next toy wave is going to be incredible.
Please.
We're going to have characters that we've never seen in toy form before. We're going to have like the costumes we hoped for. You're going to have. It's going to be epic.
I have we were walking the warehouse the other day, and right now we've got over 130,000 toys in our warehouse. And it's like watching the news is all the supply chains, the big box stores are out. Yep. The big box stores are out. Guess what? We're not.
Right.
We have our aisles in the warehouse. The shelving's about, 25, 30 feet tall. and each aisle goes for about 150 feet.
Right.
We have 2 full aisles, both sides of Star Wars Black Series. Then we have another whole 2 aisles for Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
DC's got its own section. McFarlane, Funko. Now this is the you'll go nuts. Funko is the entire perimeter walls of the warehouse, and it's floor to ceiling.
Nice.
That's how much Funko we've got in stock, and it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy seeing the figures that are coming in and knowing how cool and how exciting it is to be a fan of all this.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things that we were talking about going to become this pop central hub, okay, is how they're tying it into the toys, to the movies, to the books, to the games, to the shows, to the clothing. I mean, to the plushies. We picked up the whole Loungefly line of backpacks. Yeah. The Disney and Star Wars and Marvel backpacks from Loungefly are ridiculous. How cool they are. Last point, one of the things I wanted to make with you is, I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the trailer for the National Geographic thing with Chris Hemsworth?
Yes.
I can't
believe they're letting him do this.
50 feet below a cable car between 2 mountains and free climbing that. How did Feige okay that?
That's even my wife said that because she loves Chris Hemsworth, and she goes, "How are they letting him up there? I need more Thor." And I'm like, I have no idea how this has worked out. The same studio somehow, but man, that's just
that show wild. Looks incredible.
Yeah,
and then the other one with Will Smith.
Yes,
did you see it where he's in the submarine 3,000 feet below the surface of the planet?
I guess we just reached the era of let's just push it to the limit at this point. We had 2 years of doing nothing. Let's see what we can accomplish. The cool thing about Disney right now is that they have a Jeff Goldblum show and a Chris Hemsworth show. So two of their movie guys doing shows for them, and it's both are going to be really great in their own way. So
you saw our guitars we got in, by the way.
Yes, those are awesome.
Those Axe guitars, they are the coolest, sweetest looking things I've seen in a long time. We got a whole Beatles set that came with the guitars and Ringo's drum set and the keyboard. It is so cool, and they're this big.
Yeah, so they're actually a collectible that you can just put on the wall, and they don't take up a lot of space, which is quite nice, especially if you look behind me. I'm out of wall space, so I can stick it right between my 2 shelves and it'll be perfect.
All right, so the quick question I've got: how many of the Funkos have you busted open to see if they have brains?
I did it with one, full disclosure. I did check it out. No.
No brain?
No.
So it's a gaff?
Yeah. I had to do it, though. I'm very much a see for myself kind of person. So I did take apart. I think it was my Ian Malcolm that I had 3 of. I had to just check it out. Oh.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for your time today. Also, for those of everybody that don't know, besides doing our coffee talk in the morning on Monday mornings, you also run a local chapter of what's called Pops for Patients. Is that correct?
Yes. We are a charity. It's a nationwide, actually global charity at this point that doesn't operate on money or any financial sort of support, just pure collectible, toys, Funko Pops, comic books. I've expanded to coloring books, reading books, anything that a kid would enjoy. We started out working with kids in the hospital, like with cancer and things like that. And really just trying to bring a smile to their face. And now we've extended to, kids who don't have coats. We've extended everywhere to anything that will help a child out. We try to do. So if you have any unused toys, Funko Pops are where it's huge. I think we've got up to 3,000 Pops this year. We're doing a lot with A Reason for the Season drive. And then I work with a lot of school districts, things like that. 3 of us run it, and just, it's been a blast, and it's a global phenomenon. But we've had professional athletes reach out to us, other businesses. We don't advertise all of our donations because some celebrities who have donated ask just to not have it thrown out there, and they just want to do it to be nice.
Kevin Feige.
We have a lot of great sponsors, and Jason actually put us on, 3 years ago now, I think, for The Reason for the Season drive, got us on the news, which ended up getting us national attention. And I did many iHeartRadio interviews and stuff like that about it. So we really took off after that. And anything to bring a smile to a kid, and we don't accept money. It's not about that. It's just about items that we can give the children. So, and for those of you who do follow us on all that, if you haven't seen pictures, it's because of COVID. We haven't been able to interact with the kids. We've just had to mail stuff out and everything else. And so, your stuff has gone somewhere with love. We just can't, interact yet. And so, but the support has been amazing. In 3 years, I think we're at 7,000 donations, something like that at this point. So, yeah.
So where do you put them in the house? I mean, you've got your comic book room. Is your wife ready to move you out? Or are you getting storage units soon? Or
I actually next year I'm getting a storage unit. I'm going to set it up outside because currently we use a local car dealership, Vision Nissan, to house them. And before they go there, they're in my garage. And when they came to pick them up last time, half of my garage was full of boxes. So my wife is a very, very understanding, tolerant, and loving woman who's all about the children. But at some point she says, get the shit out of my house. And so I'm already allowed a comic book room and a comic book basement and stuff around the house. And so at some point something has to give. So I am actually getting a storage unit next year.
Wow.
To house everything.
Awesome. Well, Dan, thank you so much for this. And I know we ran a little late and it's crazy, but we just had so much to cover, and hopefully we'll be doing this again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right. And then everybody, you can find Dan every weekend on ToyShnip.com under the blog section. And we'll have our Monday morning coffee with Dan every day, or every week, I should say. So thank you. Talk to you guys soon.